Here we are, the Bleed Bomber. Let's just get into it. Let's showcase where the build's at. We're gonna hop into T16 here, Glacier, and just kind of just riff and just show you what we've been doing, with this build. I will say we are level 92, which is quite low. This has probably been one of the worst leagues to league start as Melee in the current state that Melee is in. However, we've made it work somewhat. We're blasting, okay? We can clear quickly. And to be honest, I felt like this was like this is kind of competitive in the early game.
I can't do this.
As you can see, we just Warcry, slam, Warcry, slam. We rotate our Warcries. We sometimes put down our totem, of course, and then we Warcry and slam. And we explode. Okay, anything with big packs where the big packs congregate, that's what I've been leaning to. So Breach, Blight, obviously Extreme Archaeology with Expedition. One of the worst things about this build currently is the axe that I'm using is quite slow. And when we get chilled, it's not a good time. We have to figure that out. We have to figure out chill immunity or just get a better axe, which is probably what I'm going to end up doing. Let's see if there's an expedition here. I probably should have forced one. I will say also, this build has exceeded my expectations mainly because of a few gearing options. Now we're probably gonna die here just because this stuff is super dangerous. It's Melee. And we don't have crit immunity, which is another thing that you're probably gonna want this league is crit immunity. And this looks okay.
Ready when you are.
Looks okay. Hopefully there's no. Yeah, it should be good. So we just slam and then we blow them up. And I want to show off like a really nice sword here. A loggy book. What I'm talking about. Not too bad. Alright, here, let's show a Legion. These are also great for this build. Which wasn't the case before these upgrades that we found. Legion was pretty tough because of, obviously, these enemies don't move, right? So for Bleed, it's not that good. Except, however, we've changed that, and now they all do move. But we'll talk about that gear when we get to that level. Okay, let's do a boss. And you're gonna see something pretty cool here. Really gonna showcase these boots. There we go. There's our boss. As you can see, he was well, he was moving the whole time, so I guess that doesn't really matter. So yeah, this is the Bleed Bomber. This is the Bleed Bomber. This is the gist of the build here. It's just slamming, Warcrying. It is not, is it a 1-button build? No. A 2-button build? Nay. It's a 5-button build, okay? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe a 6-button build. 7 buttons if we count the Vol, which I do pop. So this build is not for the faint of heart. It is not for the lazy. Okay, it's an extremely active build that requires a lot of, a lot of awareness because there's just so much that you're doing. But however, once you kind of get into the flow of things, oh yeah, and then you have to press your fucking flask as well, which I have been doing because I keep forgetting to. Ooh, nice. I keep forgetting to add my auto flasks. I just don't mind like pressing a lot of buttons. It does get somewhat exhausting after like 4 or 5 hours of play. You start to get like some of that, button fatigue. However, I don't know. I don't mind it as much as others. Some people, if they see 2 buttons, then they have to run away. There's just no possible scenario where they'll ever play a build with more than 1 button, which I get. If there's builds that enable 1 button, why would you not do that? I get that. But, you know, melee, you just don't have that luxury. You have to utilize every single tool in your toolbox. And specifically for Earth Shatter, you need the war cries. So here is our bleed bomber, guys. All right, we're utilizing a Yolnatol's Kiss, which is not the best axe, okay? But for this build, it's not too bad. A Rithlathus Coil and a Circle of Guilt. And then the big upgrade was the Tempest Arising. We'll talk about that in a minute. We have some bleed gloves, just regular gear, pretty good ring, you know, standard amulet with Dirty Techniques anointed. All sort of just like standard gear. There's really nothing crazy here. On the tree, nothing crazy. We have one Megalomaniac, which is giving us nearby enemies chilled and force multiplier. So this is the tech where we can now make enemies move just by... We can make enemies move now without having to put ensnaring arrow on them or without actually having them move. So Tempest Rising says you and enemies in your presence count as moving while affected by elemental ailments. And I mean, that is the biggest thing. That's the biggest upgrade to this build. That's what makes this build like so smooth now. Once we got these boots, I was like, oh man, this is just so much better. So initially I was like, all right, how are we going to inflict elemental ailments on these enemies? And I was like, well, maybe we go Skitterbots. And then someone was like, listen, there's a node that just says nearby enemies are chilled. And once I got this, obviously you can go with the cold cluster, but a Megalomaniac with like another good node is probably your best option. Now, unless anyone else has any other ideas on how to inflict an ailment, because remember, we are running brutality, so we can't inflict ailments. We have to have something else inflict ailments. Skitterbots is only going to inflict one enemy at a time. It's not going to proliferate, which sucks. We do have our totems, which I was thinking like maybe we can add chill to this thing, which, you know, still might be a good option for like really long range, because this is only for nearby, right? So when you're nearby, then the enemy is counting as moving, which is around 3 meters. So I would say like nearby is around like if the strong box is an enemy, I would say it's around like here, maybe like here. This would be considered nearby, so they would be considered moving. So if we wanted to put a bleed on him, pop it, and then run away, like far away, he's not going to be moving. So one of the things that I'm going to have to do is figure out a way to like, maybe we do have to get chill on our war chief. That way we can continue to chill and have it bleeding while I'm out here, which is not going to be very difficult because there's a few things that we don't need anymore, you know, and we don't have a 6-link axe. So we do have some sockets to play around with. With this specific axe, Old Natol's Kiss, it's casting Vuln for us. It's also giving us 200% increased damage with exerted attacks, and they're knocking back, which was also giving move. So as like an early game axe, this has been great, right? That knocking back makes them move. We're getting 200% increased damage because we are exerting all of our attacks. Every attack is going to be exerted. Yeah, it just has like good physical damage. So at this point, I think we're gonna have to, you know, to get a strong rare axe, something with like 800 DPS or something. You know, this just isn't cutting it for like super end game. But yeah, so this has been the gearing so far. Let's go talk about the tree as well as the we'll look at the PLB. So the tree is fairly simple bleed tree, right? Now I was taking this node here, these AoE nodes, and you just want AoE everywhere as much as you can possibly get. You don't want to get this if you don't need it. I don't even think I need it actually. Oh, I do need it. But yeah, it's just like a simple bleed tree. I'm only taking this Warcry node here. I'm probably gonna drop the melee fortify and just grab this one just to save a point there. The other thing is that you might want to try to get leech elsewhere, so you can drop this entire cluster and then grab this up here as well as this node here, so we can get the bleed jewel. There's just no bleed jewels on the market right now, from what I've seen. But yeah, that's currently, so there might be some in the future. But you know, standard axe bleed build here, nothing too crazy. And if we look at the POB, our damage is around 7 to 9 million, I would say, if we consider like the burst damage, right? So if we do this, our spikes, you know, they're gonna be pretty high. So we're gonna have some good burst damage with some really strong bleed damage. Bleed about 5 million bleed. This is kind of what our POB is looking like. Now, I do have a few things that I want to do. So one of the cool things, we talked about the boots. The other cool thing was that you can get the faster bleeds on your glove through a haunted modifier. So if you can craft like a good haunted gloves, this goes up to 20%. So I just need to divine this, and this can get up to 20%, and these can be really, really strong. The other stuff is, a really good and nearby enemies take increased physical damage helmet, which is something I'm going to craft as well. We're also going to get our Awakened Jewels. We are not going to be running Pride. We're not going to be running Malevolence. I just feel like it's just too much pressure when we add that, and we need as much of the defense as we can. So, yeah, I just don't think it's necessary to run those. We have the damage without it. Now, I do want to show you kind of like the end game state here. And this is the theory. This is the end game POB here, with around like a 12 to 13 million bleed, and then like a really high burst damage. So if we're looking at 5 spikes, we're talking 34 million spike damage with a max hit, which is important, right? So really good damage. Like this can output some really good damage, and this is what the end game tree is going to look like. So we're going to path this way and grab this jewel here, and this is going to give us 100% increased damage with bleeding, as well as 20% faster bleeds. This also allows us to grab this life wheel and this physical mastery wheel, which is also really strong. I mean, that's giving us alone 15%. We're gonna drop the rest of these nodes here and just put a thread of hope here, so we can grab this. We're unfortunately probably gonna need to grab diamond skin, just because res is a problem, and we're also gonna grab this leech node here, because remember, we're not taking this leech cluster here. So we need to get leech elsewhere, and this is a good place to get it. And then, yeah, like I said, we're going to take this fortify wheel, and we're going to take a large cluster here so we can get some more leech as well. We need the mana leech, we need the life leech, and then we're going to add our megalomaniac to the top here. And we could run a Watcher's Eye for determination, but I feel like we might as well just go with more damage and more life there. The other thing you can do is, if you have the room, you could possibly, take this here, drop this jewel, and then run a Bane of Legends, and that's going to give you around 20% more damage. You could also go with one of these, like First to Strike or Inspirational if you wanted more defense. You can go with more AoE with Impact, which actually might be the move, to be honest. It's probably something I might do if these are kind of cheap enough. And this is just going to give you just crazy amount of AoE. So, and that's what's going to be fun about this build, is just having like screen-wide, like true screen-wide AoE, where you just pop and explode the whole screen. We're nearly there now. You saw it, you saw it in the video, but there are situations where it's not covering, we're not getting that full coverage. So that's something I'm probably going to build into a little bit later. But yeah, this is the endgame POB here. This is what our gear looks like. This is with like a good axe, T2 hybrid axe, a good physical helmet. This you can craft by just doing nearby enemies take 12% increased physical damage, and then combining it with the armor fortify and hoping you hit a good res roll, and then you just re-roll physical for the physical taken as lightning, and then you just craft on life. Our chest would be the same. Our gloves would be the same. Our amulet would be the same. That's it. That's really the only other piece of gear. That and the axe. Those are the two big gear upgrades. And then the rest would be the getting the bleed jewel once one becomes available, right? So this is this is where we're at. Okay, this has been the Bleed Bomber. I don't know what I'm going to be playing next. I'm very happy to get away from like pressing a million buttons. But, nonetheless, it will be probably something that's off meta, something that not a lot of people are playing. I do want to play Blink Arrow, Mirror Arrow. I've always wanted to play that build ever since I've seen it years ago when they've cleared. I saw this one video of someone clearing Maven with it when they had like 100 Mirror Arrow clones, and I always thought that was so cool. And now Blink Arrow, Mirror Arrow is really strong, so that might be an option that I might play. I just want to see if there's ways that you can build it that isn't following the path that everyone's kind of followed. I just like to do things a little bit. I like to figure it out on my own. That's really where I have the fun in this game, is like trying to figure out the builds on your own and figure out new mechanics and new ways to scale things. That's what's been really fun and rewarding with this build. Against all odds, can we make a fucking bleed build work? Bleed gladiator melee slam build. Can we make it work in modern PoE? And I think I've shown that we absolutely can, especially on like a small budget. Like this isn't a crazy budget. We aren't using like crazy uniques or any sort of like T0s or anything like that. Well, actually these might be tier 0. I'm not exactly sure. However, they don't cost anything. Okay. This cost me 2 divines maybe for a good roll. So, yeah, like that. This is kind of where I have my fun in the game, and I don't know what would be next. I don't know what build is going to be next, but I'll keep you guys updated. Yeah. All right. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Peace.